On the next Wendy Life, Wendy talks with Jennifer Daley, who shares her incredible story about her special needs son.
I took Christopher, which is my 6.5-year-old, and Jonathan, who's 3.5, to a theater out in Lake in the Hills, the AMC out there. And I was taking them to see Dumbo. So Jonathan and I were sitting, and we were about halfway through the movie, and a lady came up and she told me that there had been noise complaint of a baby crying. And I looked at her and I said, well, he's not crying. And she said, well, I have to ask you to leave. And I'm like, seriously?
In the middle of the movie?
In the middle of the movie.
Wow.
The point of a movie is the fact that you want to hear other people. You want to hear the laughter. You want to hear how people react to things. I can sit at home and watch a movie.
Right.
But it takes away any kind of normalcy that a child has or an adult has. And when you have that happen, then you're isolating them.
We're going more on location. We're talking to a more diverse group of people, bringing the special needs community right to you. Welcome back. Right now I have with me Jennifer Daley, and Jennifer knows a little sign language too, so that's a nice little segue. What got you into sign language?
My son Jonathan has moderate to severe hearing loss.
Okay.
So he doesn't always keep his hearing aids in because he gets a lot of frequent ear infections.
Okay.
So I do a lot of sign language so he knows when I'm doing things with him. So when I'm all finished with stuff and I have to take his tube feeding away, I go like this, which means all done. If he's going to get food, I give him a little bit of feeding like that. If I ask him if he wants to do something again or more, I do that with him. And that kind of just helps to, verbalize without him having his hearing aids in what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, I know when my kids would have hearing aids, they didn't like them and they would, you hear the whistle from it. So I left it alone. But you have a way of communicating with him.
He gets worked up when I try to take away his food. When his food's finished, he doesn't like it if you just take it away. So I tell him what I'm doing.
He wants to
and then I give it to him and I say, all done. And then I ask for it back, give it back to mommy, please. And he gives it to me and then he's okay. But if I just take it and unclip him.
He's not happy.
Yeah. He gets upset with me.
Wow. Now you and I have a similar story, which is how we met. A friend of mine forwarded a news segment with you talking about you and your boys in a movie theater. So tell us that story.
I took Christopher, which is my 6.5-year-old, and Jonathan, who's 3.5, to a theater out in Lake in the Hills, the AMC out there. And I was taking them to see Dumbo. Christopher had earned it as a gift because he was doing really well in school. And I've taken Jonathan to probably about 6 or 7 movies, never had a problem. And I usually sit with him. With his handicap, he wears a brace that supports his head. Because he's got cervical spine abnormalities on his vertebrae. So it keeps him from being able to do this and keeps him from doing this. And with it being a helmet on a bracket that goes down to his back, and he's got a brace that's called a TLSO that goes around his front, he doesn't have that movement and he loses that vision like that. So I sat in the top row of the theater and all the way over. So I'm right by the stairs. If I have to leave, I'm not disrupting people. And then he can see what's going on in the theater.
You can see straight ahead.
Yeah, exactly. So Jonathan and I were sitting and we were about halfway through the movie. And a lady came up and she told me that there had been noise complaint of a baby crying. And I looked at her and I said, well, he's not crying. And she said, well, I have to ask you to leave. And I'm like, seriously?
In the middle of the movie?
In the middle of the movie.
Wow.
We've been in there. We came in about 7:20. It was about 8:35. We've been in there for well over an hour and not had a single issue. He doesn't cry usually. And he was laughing at Dumbo because when Dumbo would suck in the feather, he all of a sudden would fly up into the air. And he thought it was the funniest thing because Christopher and Jonathan both love airplanes and things like that are flying.
And boys.
And he thought it was funny.
Wow.
He's going up in the air and he's giggling. And when Jonathan laughs, he doesn't have the same laughing capability as other little kids. He's got a rare form of dwarfism. And with that dwarfism, he's got less ribs. So he's got a smaller chest capacity. And he also has what's called tracheobronchial malacia.
Wow.
So he's got essentially like a kind of a floppy airway. So for him to get in any major sound, it's kind of hard for him. You'll hear him like kind of giggling and, woo kind of sounds. But not enough where it should project over the sound of a movie. If you can hear him over,
the capacity.
He doesn't have the capacity to do it. If he could, I'd be like rejoicing.
Right.
So when she told me I had to leave, I'm like, okay. So she's like, well, how can I help you leave? And she's like, you need to leave now. And I'm like, okay, well, you're going to have to give me a second because it took me 2 trips to make it up there. because it's an endeavor to bring him up with his equipment and everything. And I usually space myself out, so I get an extra seat for him, and I have all his equipment. We got all the way down. I packed him back up into his chair, and we left. And as we got out in the hallway, she told me, she's like, I apologize, but I have to ask you to leave. And I looked at her. I said, you do realize he wasn't crying? And she's like, well, when we have a complaint, we have to ask the person that's being complained to leave. And I said, well, I could understand that if you gave me a warning. I said, you didn't even give me a warning. I said, I'm right by the stairs. I didn't see you observing me or telling me I did something wrong. And I'm like, he can't do it. And she's like, well, can you come back tomorrow? We'll give you another showing. And I looked at her and I said, frankly, do you realize what a trip it is for me to make it in here, get situated, and to do this? It's not like some people go out the door, you get in the theater, you get drinks, and you go right out there and sit.
It's not that simple for you.
It isn't as simple for like some people. And I looked at her and I said, Christopher has some normalcy in his life. He's got soccer in the morning. She's like, well, we can do it, another time. And she was being very nice, giving us another showing. But that was, I don't want a private showing.
I'm here today. I came today at this time. Yes.
I came to see the movie. And I said, the point of a movie is the fact that you want to hear other people. You want to hear the laughter. You want to hear how people react to things. I can sit at home and watch a movie.
Right.
But it takes away any kind of normalcy that a child has or an adult has. And when you have that happen, then you're isolating them. And Jonathan's got a good little heart. I mean, I don't want him to be isolated. I want him to rejoice in being different and appreciating what there is in life, and his brother to see that. So she's like, well, I can send you across the hall and you can watch Missing Link.
What?
And I'm like, I didn't come to see Missing Link.
Right.
And I'm like, what's the say? I got really, then I started to cry because then I got mad. When I
was about
cry
to
when
ask
I get
you,
angry.
how did you feel? Yeah, you want to punch her, but you came out and crying.
I cry when I'm angry.
Yeah.
And I looked at her, I said, so what's to say in 15 minutes you're not going to come into that theater and tell me that I have to leave? She didn't have an answer. And I said, you're watching me now. I go, he's not doing anything. Then she was like, oh, I'll put you back in the movie. We can put you back in. We'll put you in the front row. And I said to her, I said, do you realize why we sat where we sat? We sat where we sat. And I explained to her the rationale why. I said, you put him in the front row. I said, you're putting the kid at a handicap. And she's like, well, we can put you over to the side. I said, I paid and chose my seats.
Right.
I don't want to be sitting somewhere else. And I said, second of all, I've already missed 20 minutes of the movie now. I said, I like the best part of the movie when Dumbo's at the top of the thing and the ladder falls away and he can't get down. I'm like, I never saw Dumbo, so I didn't know what was going to happen next. And I'm like, kind of took away the fun of enjoying the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of just want to go home.
So when you get home with the boys, how do you explain this to them? They're wondering why we had to leave, right?
Well, Jonathan doesn't know, enough to ask that kind of stuff yet. He's really young. Christopher, when we got out in the parking lot and we got in the car, he looked at me and he said, well, can we watch the rest of the movie?
Oh.
And I looked at him and I had to say, Christopher, we can't. And he goes, well, why not? I said, because somebody complained about your brother making too much noise. And he doesn't know how to say, I don't understand or I don't get it. He looked at me, he goes, he was only giggling, Mommy. So then I sat in the car and cried. Because
it's heartbreaking.
How do you explain to a kid that people don't understand other people's laughter?
Yeah.
People don't know how to treat other people. And I said, of all the movies you get kicked out of, you get kicked out of where the elephants ostracized for being different.
Right.
And then I didn't realize that until weeks later of what we got kicked out of and how it was kind of an irony to it. And I'm like, I didn't know what to say to him.
Yeah, it's hard to explain. I know when we were, and I think I blocked out, I don't even know what movie we went to see, and someone was complaining about Christian. And well, he did observe, which was funny. He observed for a little bit, and we were sitting in the handicapped area, and they said, well, someone complained, oh, well, you stood there long enough to see. And like your person, he said, well, if someone complains, we can give you tickets for another movie. And see, I wasn't leaving. I said, well, if you can see my son, he's going to be the same. So why don't you give them the tickets and they can come back? So I didn't enjoy the movie, and I just wanted to, I wanted to cry and I wanted to just jump on this person, but I wanted to teach him something about how to deal with different people. And I wanted to teach Matthew, you can't fight the person because they're ignorant. So when I saw your story and I read more about it, I was like, man, we have to meet, because tell us what happened that was good from your story.
After I publish on Facebook for my family and friends. When I had my kids, I wanted to be able to see my kids and see pictures when they're not close and share, the happiness. And when I posted what happened, I posted it because I wanted people to take a minute, even if they were my friends, Next time you want to get a little cranky with somebody or be unkind, think about it.
Have that awareness.
Have awareness. That's all I wanted. And, you know, a couple of my friends were like, they were so angry. They're like, you need to you make it public so I can share it. Well, I had no idea when I did that.
What that meant.
Well, yeah. I figured, a few people share, maybe 50 or 100 people. That's whatever. The next thing I know, that thing blew up to like 10,000 people.
Wow. That's viral, right?
It went viral.
Yeah.
And it was good. And I had people from all over the place, you know, wonderful people. For every negative person, there was like 50 to 60 or 70 people who were really kind. But then people figured out how to start calling me on Facebook.
Yeah, on that messenger. Yeah.
Also, my phone would be ringing and I'm in management. So I had to answer my phone. And then I realized, and they would be screaming at me and swearing at me, calling me horrible things and sending me horrible messages. My husband's like, well, just delete them. And I said, but you still see things.
You have to see them to know to delete them.
And I said, so I got angry. You know, first I cried because I was upset. And then I got angry and I said, I'll be damned if I'm going to let this be what my son remembers.
Right.
And, you know, I said to my husband, I said, I'm going to turn this into something positive.
Good.
I can't even tell you how many people offered to do a theater, you know, rent out a theater for us. And I turned so many people down because I wasn't wanting anything. I just wanted people to take a minute. I said, 365 days a year, I said, one day we know how to be kind. You know, that's Christmas time. I said, otherwise I see people flying at you in the road. They honk at you. I go to a restaurant, hear people screaming at people because the poor waitress brings you your food and your steak's overcooked. Not her fault.
Right.
The chef cooked it wrong.
Yeah.
So just send it back. And if it comes back, you know, then you ask for, hey, you know, this is what I asked for. But people are not kind. Or they get angry at the person at the checkout line because their line's long. Yeah. It's not their fault.
Right.
That the management doesn't want to give them a second cashier.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
And I said, that's what made me angry. You know, we don't know how to be kind to each other. And so I said to my husband, I said, I'm going to take somebody up on this. And my husband's like, we can't do this. And I said, well, you know what? Yeah, we can. Yeah. I said, well, there's a will, there's a way. And I said, I want to do this because, you know, somebody sent me a message about how, you know, children like him should be euthanized. You know, that they don't belong in this world. If he lived in a different time, he'd be gone. Wow. And I got ticked. Yeah. And to me, every child's beautiful, no matter how handicapped they are. And there's a reason that they're here. I may not know why Jonathan has the challenges he has, but he's caused me to slow down. Yeah. And really appreciate the beauty in life. Wow. And, you know, when he accomplishes something, it warms
huge.
Your heart.
It's huge.
Warms your heart. Yeah. It just makes you so happy. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine. We're going to take a break and we're going to compose ourselves, just learning to be kind to everyone and having that awareness of just being kind to people and taking a step back. We'll be right back with Miss Flurry Daley, my friend Jennifer. Yeah.
On the next Wendy Life, Wendy talks to Dr. Evisha Ford, founder and executive director of I Can Dream Center.
It's always been my heart's desire to open a facility to support students with disabilities. Initially, I set my sights on supporting young children with disabilities. And my career path took me to administration for high school students. And so I got to really hear the hearts of parents at that age group. And I understood that there was a vacuum of resources for after-school therapeutic programs for kids with disabilities. And so from the very beginning, we really started programming for students who were 12 and older.
Welcome back. I have a treat. I have the boys right here with Mom. Introduce these beautiful, handsome young men. What's your name?
Christopher Daley.
Yes, Christopher Daley. Okay, I
so
love
serious.
And
where's the smile?
Who's your little brother? You want
Jonathan Daley.
Jonathan Daley. How do you like being a big brother?
A lot.
You do?
I like helping my brother out. Giving him his breathing treatment.
Oh, you help with that?
Mm-hmm. He does every night. He holds the breathing treatment for him and he talks to him when he gets a little scared. Wow. He calms him down, don't you? You do a nice job.
That's
big
a
boy.
Stuff. Good big brother. That helps because Matthew, when he was younger, he would help with Christian. He still helps with Christian a lot. But it's so nice to, as they're growing up, to be able to love their little brother.
Do you love your brother?
Yes, I love my brother very much.
So what grade are you? What grade are you going to be?
I'm going to be second grade next year.
Next year. Awesome. Do you like school?
Yes.
Yes. What's your favorite subject?
My favorite thing is
That's cool.
Jim.
Jim. So you're a runner, jumper. That's awesome.
I get to run and jump in my school a lot.
Yeah.
In my gym class, I do a lot of stuff. Sometimes I see like plays on the stage.
Oh, nice. Now, do you know yet what you want to be when you grow up?
I'm gonna be a scientist. I'm gonna be a scientist.
Wow.
What are you going to do with it being a scientist? This is the fun part.
Okay, what are we going to do as a scientist?
I'm gonna bring back Godzilla from the dead.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So where he going to stay, though? Because he kind of
Where's he gonna live?
Where's he going to live?
I'm gonna put him in New York.
Okay, as long as it's New York, right? So you're about to tell us something good that happened from your story going viral. You were on the local news, number one. So that brought even more awareness, hopefully, to people who just don't know. But what you got a good phone call and something great happened from this.
I did. I had a gentleman reach out to me from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, named Bo Box. And he said he had seen my story on Instagram. So I guess it got shared beyond Facebook into Instagram. And he said how much it had bothered him. And he wanted to do a running of the theater to see Dumbo, whatever movie I wanted, to do that for him. And I, was shocked that anybody wants to do that.
In Louisiana.
In Louisiana.
Yeah.
And I talked to him for quite a while, and he took it over and, I gave him some ideas of theaters that I would be fine with. And I figured I had to do a lot of legwork. I didn't have to do a single thing. That gentleman planned, worked with his team, set everything up.
Wow.
My husband was kind of in a state of shock. He thought it was going to be a lot of work. And we went to the Woodstock Theater, and they had a movie called Ugly Dolls, where perfection can stuff it, which was kind of funny because when you really think about it, they were misfitted dolls that people were throwing out because they wouldn't fit in. And I'm like, well, there you go. It kind of just keeps tying like red line to my theme there. And at the end, they end up being one of the most cherished, which was a really good movie. But when I showed up at the theater, I had no idea that the gentleman was going to be there. He flew all the way up there from Baton Rouge, Louisiana with his 15-year-old son, Bo, and surprised us.
Nice.
It was very nice. He was an extremely nice gentleman, which of course brought me to, I guess I cried
I'd have been crying.
And, when we showed up, and I had only asked for people with special needs children to be there because I really, I wanted it to have them to have an opportunity to attend something where they wouldn't be judged. They can make as much noise as they want. I don't care. They can scream, laugh, dance, whatever, suits their fancy. And the local Home Depot by my house and also the JCPenney put together, little gift bags, like little tote bags with ugly doll themes and everything else for the kids, coloring, all kinds of fun stuff.
So bigger than you were even expecting.
I wasn't expecting that.
Wow.
And they had that we had 40 people show up for that.
That's a good number.
It was wonderful. And it was great. Jonathan enjoyed the movie immensely.
At the space in the movie theater where he could be.
We sat right in the middle. We were comfortable.
Yeah.
We watched the whole thing, enjoyed it. No problems. The gentleman was wonderful. And then, of course, after that happened, AMC, of course, reached out to me because it was televised again because they came afterwards to see, because they were getting a lot of real negative feedback from a lot of people who wrote them and complained about what had happened. And I talked to one of their, I don't know, it's a complaints department or whatever it may be, and explained to her what had happened. And she's like, they wanted to make it right and have another showing. And I said, and she goes, we've already started retraining our staff.
Good.
And I said, that's all I wanted.
I was hoping that you, please
I said,
say
that was my biggest thing. And I said, my other big feedback to you is I said, I never was offered a special, sensory friendly film. I didn't even know what that was. After your, what a marketing department, whatever, commented back on CBS or whatever show it was that you guys had offered that to me, that never happened. And I said, I did research on that. And I said, I have to say it's a wonderful thing that you partnered with the Autism Society, but not everybody needs sensory-friendly films.
That's exactly what I said. My son needs the bright lights. He needs it to be loud.
And you have a child that has moderate to severe hearing loss and a child who doesn't need lights to be dimmed or whatever, and you turn the sound down. I go, they don't enjoy the movie as much. You're taking away from their experience. And I said, why is it you only offer once or twice a month at a certain show time, which is honestly very inconvenient because the times that you're offering it in my area, I have to choose whether I'm going to go to church or not. I have to choose what I'm going to do. And I have to get up extremely early to make it to the theater on time. I said, you ever go to a theater during the week and you go in at like 11 o'clock, 10, 11 o'clock? I go, how busy are you guys?
Yeah.
I go, you're not. I said, why can't you offer more show times to people and put in the caveat that, hey, you know what? There may be people with some special needs that the noise may be a little louder.
Yeah.
And if you're uncomfortable, then we ask you to choose a different showtime.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
and it's simple. It doesn't cost that much. No. And it's just one movie theater within the whole building and one movie. Yeah, and for me, it doesn't even have to be an up-to-date movie. It's just the experience of taking my son to a movie theater and having that movie theater experience.
And I said to the lady on the phone, I said to her, I said, it's not just children. I said, you realize people don't realize, they go, oh, these special needs kids or these disabled, handicapped children. I said, well, adults have it. I said, people with dementia, all of a sudden your lifestyle has changed. You have people with traumatic brain injuries and have had car accidents or strokes. I said, all of a sudden you may be walking down the street totally normal, and the next day you are going to be having a major issue. Yes. And I said, we need to take a step back. And I said, that's my one thing. So they offered to make a theater available to me. And I took them up on it because I needed to make closure with it. Mm-hmm. And they are trying to make something right. Mm-hmm. And so I said, well, if you're going to do that, then I need you to open it up to the public. Yeah. So they offered a 116 capacity theater. And I filled it with 116 people. Yes. Unfortunately, one family couldn't make it because they had car issues. But 112 people showed up. That's for that theater, and they gave, they held Dumbo, and we saw Dumbo.
We finally saw
Dumbo, and he loved it. He stayed awake for about 90% of the movie. Like the last 10, 15 minutes, he fell asleep because it was late. And I had, a lot of people come up to me afterwards and like, did he sleep through the movie? And I'm like, no, he wasn't sleeping. I go, he made just as much noise as he did the first time around. Like, we never heard him.
And that's
they
your
never
point.
heard him. I said, that would be exactly why Jennifer was being a little bit of a pain in the butt.
Yeah. I'm so happy that, through that, which is horrible, something good came from it. And hopefully someone seeing that will start to train their staff. It doesn't matter what business it is. We all need to learn to have that awareness and be inclusive of everyone, whether they're normal, they're different, they have a disability or not. Because like one guest said, and you just said, any one of us can become disabled at any point in time. So I just need to switch because I heard you had like a whole job in addition to being a mother to these boys. How do you manage being you're a professor, so that's a full-time position, or is it part-time?
That's a second job.
You got two.
I've done 3 different things. I work full-time in a healthcare industry as a management. So I go between 2 different hospitals. I took that job after I've been in healthcare for about 24 years. When I had Jonathan, I had no idea Jonathan was going to have any challenges. The only thing I knew about Jonathan was he had smaller femurs. So nobody told me anything was up until he was born. And when he was born, that's when I realized we had a lot of problems. Wow. And when that happens, your whole lifestyle changes. My husband worked as a full-time drafter, and he also worked a part-time job at Sam's Club. And when we had Jonathan, I was one that had the better insurance. I was the one that earned more money. So I went from, a regular associate, and I went into management so I could get that extra income. And he became a stay-at-home dad, and he works like a part-time job now just to get out in the evening time. Yeah. So he does that. On the side, I do some consultant work, and then I also do some teaching once in a while for a university.
When do you sleep?
I don't.
I was about to say,
I usually up about 12:30, and I get up again about 5, but it's just what my life is. You kind of get used to it.
Yeah. So tell me about that. I know we found out Christian was disabled at 20 weeks. So I didn't know how moderate or severe it would be, but I knew something was going to be different with him. But you didn't find out till you had him.
I didn't.
How does that feel? You're already hormonal. We're crazy. And then you're presented with this child. You're like, no one told me this.
Well, when I had Christopher, I had him as a C-section. When I was going to have Jonathan, my husband wanted me to have, vaginal because I was doing a VBAC. So when I got the option from my OB-GYN, he's like, we can, have you get induced at 40 weeks. And I said, he's kind of got smaller femurs. I'm like, let him cook. And I'm like, there's a reason. I'm like, let him cook a little longer. Maybe it'll help his little femurs get where they need to be. That's my thought philosophy. Keep him cooking. And he's like, well, all I'll let you do is up to 42 weeks. And after that, we have to make sure he comes out because there's risk for complications. So exactly 42 weeks, I got induced. And when I had him, he, by all miracles, I don't know how he's here. Because when I had him, he got stuck in the birth canal. And he kind of turned sideways. And he's got abnormally shaped C4, 5, and 6 vertebrae. So instead of being a little bit more C-shaped. They're more triangular, so he's unstable. So if he would hyperextend his neck forward like this, go like this, he basically would snap his neck.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So,
which is why he has the brace.
He has the brace, so he doesn't go forward. And when he got stuck in the birth canal, they had to vacuum him out. So when they did that, they internally lacerated me. So I was hemorrhaging. When he came out, he was blue and gray. I thought he was dead. I didn't hear a sound. He was blue and gray. And they kind of just whisked him away. And then when they brought him back, he was looking better. And they took him to the NICU. My husband went with him, and he had no idea what was going on with me. I'm watching my blood pressure, being a nurse, you watch your blood pressure go down.
Looking at all the stats.
I'm like watching my doctor screaming at everybody. And he's like the kind of the singing zippity doo dah kind of guy. And he's screaming at people. And I'm like, okay, you need to calm down. I'm calming him down. And he's looking at me. He kind of sits in front of me with his hands in his lap. And he's like trying to stay quiet. And I'm like, and they take me off to get me fixed. And my husband comes back to a room that's got nothing but bloody rags everywhere. And he has no idea where his wife's at.
Where's my wife? Oh my gosh.
And Jonathan was doing better. And then about, 4 hours after he was born, he got intubated. We had to go to a hospital and got transferred out. And then they told me when I was able to go see him that he would end up probably having to have a trach. And I'm like, you need to hold off until we don't have a choice. I'm not the type of person who jumps the minute somebody says jump.
Good for you.
And I'm like, I want to see what he's doing. Just leave him be. Let him have some opportunity. I'm like, you got him intubated. I don't want to do that. So 18 hours later, he got extubated. They took the tube out.
Good.
At about 2 months of being in the NICU, they have issues where the tracheobronchial malacia starts to show up because that's when that trachea it's too soft and they can't maintain their airway. He ended up having high pressurized oxygen, didn't need to be intubated, but had a pressurized oxygen. And the doctors told me again that he'd have to have a trach. And it's part and parcel with what he has, which is a rare form of dwarfism. And I'm like, you know what? I think you just need to let him have time to grow.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes they'd be around the curtain. I remember hearing like, this mom's kind of a, unrealistic mom. I'm like, oh no, I'm not unrealistic. I'm just a pain in your butt because I'm not letting you do what you want to do.
Good for you.
I refuse to jump every time somebody tells me to jump. I'm like, sometimes you have to look at things, and sometimes you have to give a child a chance and have some faith. And I told him, I said, this kid's going to go home before Christmas. No, he's not. I go, he's going to go home on half a liter of oxygen. No, he's not. He went home like on December 17th on half a liter of oxygen. Christmas. And those docs stood around looking at me like they shook his head. Yeah. But they couldn't believe it. But that kid went home. And I fought for him every step of the way with everything. They wanted to send him home on traction. Can you imagine putting a newborn infant on traction?
No.
With weights?
No.
So you can straighten out his neck.
No.
And they won't come to the house to set it up because of liability reasons. But I don't have a hospital bed with the exact same setup. I'm not comfortable doing that. Yeah. So I refused. You have to figure out a different method. That's why he ended up with the brace that he's got.
Wow.
And then after I got him home, and he was home for about a year, and they had to go and check his airway and do like a bronchoscopy. The physician came out again, and he's like, you need to put a trach in him now. His airway's so unstable.
They're going to keep pushing it.
And I'm looking at him going, okay, first of all, I can take him off his oxygen. He'll roll around on the floor, and he's perfectly fine. That kid's not winded. When he gets sick, you have increased oxygen needs. And he said, no, you need to do it within the next 2 weeks. And I looked at him and I said, you know what? You could get sick and you could end up in the hospital. And guess what? You can end up with a trach. He looked at me and he just shook his head and he laughed. My husband's like, you always like to push. And I'm like, I do.
You have to. You have to be an advocate for your own child.
You have to figure out something else. And I went and did where they basically did a mandibular extraction where they basically broke his jaw and they put titanium rods in there. And I had to take screwdrivers and basically refracture it every day to bring his jaw forward. But doing that surgery, which was one of the most horrific surgeries I've ever done, and I felt horrible, he would scream when he'd see me with that screwdriver. It saved his airway. It opened up his airway because what he had a normal sized infant's tongue and a dwarf's body. So when he had that too big of a tongue and it blocks the back of your airway, opened him up.
Now I've heard you say a couple times about faith. So I'm thinking that faith has a lot to do with you being strong and you getting through everything, including the movie theater. Tell us a little bit about how your faith has strengthened you and kept you together. You got 2 jobs, you got the kids, you got doctors that you're telling them what to do. How does your faith help you with that?
I remember when I was going back and forth to the hospital, long drives, my dad said to me, he goes, I don't know how you're not angry. He's like, how are you not angry? We were having a religious talk. My dad was very, when he was alive, he was very much a very religious man, but he's like, I didn't know how I couldn't be angry with God at some point because he was upset. And I said to him, I said, you know, Daddy, I'm like, I have to believe that there's a reason for everything. I said, I may not always understand why things happen the way they do, but I have to have faith that he's going to help me figure out what I got to do. And if I am willing to listen and take a second to hear what he's saying, then I may be able to fix something or make it better. And if I jump on everything somebody comes up, I said, I have to listen and I have to have faith that he's going to guide me the right way. I said, my fear is I'm going to do something wrong and I'm going to hurt him. But Jonathan, maybe he's here for a year. Maybe he's here for 20 years. I don't know. But I'm going to enjoy every minute I got with him. Because the thought of not having him, to me, is more horrifying than never getting to experience him. And just the joy he brings to people when he's around them. I mean, he goes to a special needs school now, and I was terrified of bringing him there because you have to have a lot of faith that they know how to, you know, infants, you're going to have to take them out of their clothes to change them when they soil and stuff. And I went in there, I spent a week with the teachers and the nurses and showing them how to work with him in the brace, and they love him. And his face lights up when he gets out of the car and he sees where he's at. He's like, oh, I'm going to learn today and they're going to work with me and they're going to push me. And he just gets such joy out of things that I think we take for granted.
And like you said, like with me, with my kids, I wanted them to be in an environment with other kids and that activity going around and just being able to enjoy life as much as they can. So that's huge. And I want to applaud your husband because he is the stay-at-home dad. And that's big. And I'm a huge advocate for dads because dads are important. And he knew with you guys talking, like, okay, which is the better fit to stay home? It wasn't assumed that you were the person to stay home. And he is strong enough in his manhood to be like, I'm going to stay home and I'm going to take care of the boys. And what an example he is to your boys, to Christopher, that when he grows up, like, listen, you have to have the family dynamic that works best for you, not necessarily what society tells you to do. So I applaud your husband. Please tell him that I applaud him for that.
He, you know, a lot of husbands would have left.
I'm
being very honest.
They
It's when you have a child with special needs, it takes a major toll on any family. And it takes us, and we had to go back and forth and, you know, for our hour drives every day and deal with his health. When he was in the hospital for a good 3 months, either it brings you closer together or it's going to drive you apart. And we banded more together. We had more appreciation for each other and what we, you know, he saw me at my absolute worst, helped me get through my health issues afterwards. And, you know, he was kind of hesitant in getting attached when Jonathan was in the hospital. Because I think, and he told me I was really afraid he was going to lose him. And then after he got him home and he got to work with him and spend time with him, you could just see he just adores the kid. Pieces. And, you know, for him, it is a challenge because you go from being a person who's, you know, you have a lot of money in your pocket, you're able to do things, buy what you want to buy, go where you want to go, to having, you have responsibilities. You got to go and take him to school. You're not the mom who has to do all this stuff. And he really had a major lifestyle change, but he's embraced it. And he's like, when he looked at me, he's like, I need to get out of the house. I got to still have a job that I can get out and do some things. I get it. Because he's just talking to 2 kids and he's like, I'm going to lose my mind. And mental sanity is like, you know, you have your night out and with the guys, do what you got to do and go to work and I can manage.
So you've worked it together where he can still get some time away. I love that. Just being able, do you guys get to do anything, just the 2 of you?
We do like a bowling league together in the winter, and we bring Jonathan with us. So everybody's used to him in the bowling league. And then, in the summer, we do a bags league because it's hard for me to find anybody to watch Jonathan. And so I bring Jonathan wherever I go. He's like my sidekick. And I have a pop-up tent for when we're outside where he's got the mosquito, protect him from mosquitoes. And he's got fans that are going every which way to keep him cool. And then, it gets cool. He's got one that's all enclosed. So we figure things out. We manage.
I'll find out about that tent too for my Christian.
Wheel him right in there and it's wonderful.
This story is so powerful. I hope that you guys are understanding, just being compassionate and having that awareness that just because someone is different doesn't mean that you get to treat them badly. Thank you for joining us and see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Check out more videos below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.